to this one. So I think Web API has been out for a while now, and
Yeah.
today we have the pleasure of bringing Portals Spider-Man Oleksandr. I'll try to say your last name and then you correct me, okay? Olashyn, is that the right pronunciation?
Nope.
Oh,
Almost.
close.
Yeah, close enough. It's Olashyn.
Olashyn. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think I started seeing Web API materials from Microsoft when they announced it during the presentation to MVPs. But I think one of the first resources that I saw publishing stuff on Web API, it was yourself, Oleksandr, and it wasn't just how to call, how to push an update to an entity in Dataverse or table in Dataverse. You went as far as explaining how does a regular web API or this one in particular function, how the wrapper works, how it creates promises and all that. So it was really nice for folks who are used to just doing regular jQuery to get to understand a bit more about asynchronous JS and promises and all that in the context of portals. So when we thought about having session two, organizing session two, I thought about yourself, about our pit published material on that as well, and also my friend Omar Zaor, who lives here in Calgary. He has done the XRM toolbox web API helper. So maybe we'll bring him to the sessions at some point. But it's really my pleasure and a delight and an honor to have you present today. I don't want to steal any more of your time. I already took 2 minutes. So the floor is yours. Show your magic, my friend.
Try my best. Okay, so let me share my screen. So tell me where you can see it.
Yep, we see a dark, beautiful. All right, we see us now.
Okay, sort of, yeah. I actually really like it. I'm completely look not like me, but it's even better like that. Okay, so let's get started without further ado. So before we begin, I would like to say thank you to you, Victor, for bringing this up, and for all other speakers. They did an awesome job. And if you somehow miss this, just go to Victor's channel in YouTube and learn the knowledge. It's awesome. Okay, so 2 words about me. Maybe you don't know me. So my name is Oleksandr Olashyn, and I'm Microsoft BizApps MVP, MCT, etc. So I'm working as CRM architect at a company called TreeShape. And as Victor mentioned, I have a blog called dancingwithcrm.com where I'm posting all about Power Platform, Azure, Dynamics 365, stuff like that. You can also find me in social media via Dancing with CRM Handler, as usual. And if you want, you can mail me at alexander@dancingwithcrm.com if you have any questions, stuff like that. Okay, without further ado, so we will talk about Web API. We will talk about what's its purpose, what operations are available, how security works, and then demo. A big demo with when we go through code and learn how it works, and I will show you a lot of things. If you have any questions, just post them in the chat or raise your hand and you can take it up, because it's sometimes easily just to answer the question on the spot and not go back. So if you have something, just post in the chat and Victor will let me know. Okay, so Web API. It's finally here and it's here to stay. And as every other PowerApps developer, I'm so happy that it exists. So its main purpose to extend UI and user experience. So it's not for integration. It shouldn't be used outside of the portal, and it cannot be. And it's for you to build much more extensive portals that doesn't look like a regular portal and allow you to do awesome things. You should have portal version 9.3.3 plus. And if you somehow don't have it, you definitely should update, because it not only brings Web API, but other crucial updates. So its format really looks cool. Okay. Can you still hear me? I have a drop in connection. Okay, great. Sorry, I have a drop in my connection. Anyway, so Web API is really similar to Dataverse API in its format, and it's tried to make it as much similar as it could. Obviously, it's not one-to-one, but a lot of things are really similar. So if you ever work with Dataverse API, it will be easy for you to figuring this out. Now, this is a list of available operations as for now. Now, usually API supports full range of CRUD operation, create, update, delete, and read. But as you see here on the screen, Web API doesn't support read as for now. Hopefully they will add it soon because it will extend a lot of things and we can finally drop our web templates slash small web APIs approaches, but it's good as it is. Also through Web API, we can associate and disassociate records. So in general, we can perform all necessary operation to manage things on the portal. Now, right now, Web API has some limitations, and it doesn't work with portal configuration entities or tables, and it basically never will. So you cannot update the page you're on or some permissions. It just doesn't support that. Also, file and image type fields isn't supported, or at least as for now, and also choices or multi-select, which is that field, which is also not supported on the form as well. But other than that, you're free to work with what you have. Now, let's talk about security. So in the beginning, a lot of people, me included, were a bit worried how security will work, but it's actually pretty familiar. So Web API fully respects table or entity permissions. So if your user doesn't have proper permissions, he won't be able to perform the operation and will see an error. So that's quite good. Also, there is a thing called CSRF token, which you shouldn't actually care about that much because they have it built in the Web API wrapper. But just to highlight, it's basically to protect somebody from impersonating as they are on the portal, but they actually isn't. So you can be sure that the code will be run only inside the portal. And last, but certainly not the least, is GDPR compliance. To be GDPR compliant, we need to have track of all actions that happen in the portal. So if your user is authenticated in the portal and performing any operation, in the audit logs in the Office 365 Compliance Center, and I'm highlighting this, it's not the standard audit logs in the Dataverse, it's logs in Office 365 Compliance Center, you will see the contact ID of the contact that performed that operation if you enabled audit for this entity. So that's really useful, especially if you need to backtrack some things. Now, how we actually configure Web API? Well, there is a site settings as usual. As for now, there is no UI, so you need to go and create site settings. There is, however, awesome XRM Toolbox plugin that we will actually see a bit later that will help you to simplify this configuration. But basically, first of all, you need to enable the entity for Web API through Web API / entity name / enabled, like Web API contact enabled. Then you need to provide a list of fields you want to use in the Web API, which I think is really great thing and really improve on the security. So to do so, you need to create a setting Web API / entity name / fields and provide a comma separated list of logical names of fields. Or you can use asterisk for all attributes, which is not recommended in the production by any means, but can be really useful for simple test and development. And then really crucial site setting that called Web API /error /inner error. Basically, this setting allows you to show inner error, what actually happened on the Dataverse side of things, and gets that error. Because if you don't enable this settings, you will just get the generic error code for 400, 500, etc., which can be not really useful at all. So I would advise you to just turn the setting on and leave it as is, and it will just make your life so much easier in the future. Now, how the actual Web API looks like and how we can call it. So first of all, This is how your web API will look like. So basically the base URL of the portal, the API, and then the resource or entity set name. This is really crucial, and this thing that you always need to remember. It's not just a table name, it's entity set name. So it's not contact, but contacts. It's not account, but accounts, etc. So it might be tricky, especially if your entity ends with S, because it was always a thing in a Dataverse that these set names were a bit complicated. But through the plugins, like in XRM Toolbox, you can easily find it. So we will see it later. And one of the things that you need to know is with Web API, you need to know the type of request you're doing, and you need to basically specify it so the system knows what it's dealing with. So it's using POST for creating entities and calling actions. We need to use patch when we're updating entities or doing upset operations. We are using delete when we delete entities or individual properties of entities. And we are using put in a limited situation to update individual properties. Again, it kind of can be hard to remember this. So in login from Omar, it will be shown that how it can be easily done. Or if you're using XRM Portal.js, which Victor mentioned in his first session, there is already actually version that supports Web API that looks really similar to what you have inside the regular Web API. Like, so you need to write xrm.portal.webapi and then create, update, or delete. But I'm not sure that a lot of people are using it, so we will just go with the standard wrapper for this demo. And yes, that was a really short and really fast introduction to the portal. And now we will move to demo when we can look in it in more details. So, okay. Now, any questions so far? I know that I'm sometimes running really fast, so if you have any questions. Okay, good. No questions so far. Good to know. So let's see how things are. So first, let's take a look on the wrapper and how it looks like. So let me see. Where is our wrapper? Okay, so this is the wrappers that you can find in the official documentation from Microsoft that will perform all operation. So to call it, you would need to call Web API safe Ajax and then provide every parameter that needed, which we'll review later. But basically, behind the scenes, it's just a standard Ajax call. And if you don't know what this is and how Ajax call function in jQuery, you can just Google what you can provide there. It's pretty straightforward, nothing complicated. Here is also request verification token, which I was talking previously. It's a CSRF token, which will ensure that your code will be called from the context of the portal and not outside of it to prevent different type of attacks. So pretty straightforward. Also, you need to see that it's returning promise, which we will use later in different examples. Now, if you don't know what promise is in JavaScript, basically it's a way of handling asynchronous operation. And they are fairly commonly used, especially if you work with different outside calls and APIs. So let's see what we have. So here you can see just a simple portal, nothing special, nothing fancy. There are a couple of pages with courses and sessions that you should be familiar about. So basically, this is a list of all available courses, and this is a list of sessions of this user, which is not signed in. So first, let's see as the first example, which I think is really useful. So in a lot of websites, there is a standard contact us page. Usually there was just a regular page and user need to go there and maybe provide some data and submit it back. But in the modern website, it's kind of feels outdated. So the more appropriate would be having a widget that will be available, for example, for anonymous users or on some pages that user can click and submit data. Previously, do it will be hard. Like you need to create a form, you need to incorporate it in that widget. So it wasn't an easy task to do. Luckily, with WebAPI, we can do it easily. So let's focus on adding simple contact us button here. So let's go back here. By the way, what you see right now is export of my starter portal using PowerApps portal CLI tools. Now, you can easily do it yourself. You can use my extension or just use CLI. And then you can just, if you're using my extension, you can type portal helper. You need to authenticate. So you create new house profile, and then you can download your portal by providing ID of the portal.
Oleksandr, can you,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. Can you increase the
Yep.
font size of the?
Oh yeah, sorry. I
Okay.
always forgot about that. Is that good?
Maybe just a bit larger, just a bit more.
Sure.
That's good. It's good for me. Anybody else? Maybe you want to comment in the chat if you like it that way. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Good. So, let's hop to our portal and let's open. Now, I'm still using Portal Management app for a lot of things, and I need to force myself to do it through Portal Studio, which we will be using later in this demo. But some things are still not fully enabled there, so I'm still using Portal Management for a lot of things, like creating content snippets, etc. So we want to create this button, and I would say the easiest way is to create it through the content snippet. So I already created the placeholder for our content snippet. So it will be the DVC contact us button. And in here, we will have some sample code, which basically adds some icons, some styling, and our button with the icon and text for contact us, and then some fields. So input for name, input for email, and input for message. And I also created a custom entity called prospect, which basically has all these three fields, name, email, and message. And we will submit and create a new prospect in our system. So basically, it's a simple contact us button. There is nothing fancy about it. So we will not, focus on the HTML part of things, and we'll go to JavaScript. Also, in the end of this session, all codes will be available for you to play with. So it will be in two states, starter and final. So starter is basically what you see right now, and the final is the one with fully functioning code where everything will work. So you can practice yourself and go step by step and explore the code on your own if you need it. Also, I added a lot of comments there to make it more readable. So hopefully you will find it useful. Okay, so we have this snippet, right? Now we want to add it to our page. So let's go to our trustworthy editor and add it to the page. Now, one thing I want to highlight to you is I'm using make.preview.powerapps.com, which also unlocks some additional settings in your Portal Studio that are in preview, which we will highlight later. So just for you to know, if you will try to use them in regular make.powerapps.com, you might not find them. And especially I'm talking about this settings toolbar that is not available in make.powerapps.com. Okay, so we want to include our snippet to the page. So let's type on the page copy. Let's hop to editor and add it to the end of the page copy. So it will be include. name, and this is the name of our snippet. Okay, so we can see our snippet is already here. So it is just a simple contact us button that can be opened. So let's go to our website. Let's refresh it. Okay, so we can see we have it here. And as you can see, it has icon because icon is added later with JavaScript code. So right now it's just a simple form, name, email, message, but it do nothing. So submit will not do anything. So we can just close and open it. Now let's dive into the web API itself. So first thing first, we need to enable permissions. Now, right now, usually enabling permissions wasn't, with the beautifulest interface. You would go here, you would go to table permissions, and you would create table permissions that you need. Right now, as you can see, there is no table permissions. But luckily, we have a new interface that can do it. So in make.preview.powerapps.com, we now have settings. Looking at settings enables security tab, which allow us to do table permissions here with a more readable and much more easy interface. So let's create new permission. So let's say I want global to create prospects. So we will select the table, prospect, and access type, let's global, and we want create. And add roles. In here, we can see the list of roles. Let's say we want it for anonymous users only. Okay, let's do it for automatic as well. So we can just click on it, it will add it here. We can save. And voila, we have our permission created in much more user-friendly and faster interface. Okay, we have first thing, but now we need to generate the code that will create a prospect. So I'm hopping into External Toolbox and I'm opening. So I'm opening Portal or Portal WebAPI helper from Omar Zarov. So this will allow us to generate our code snippets quickly and to also showcase what is good and what is not so great with this plugin, and also how does it actually look like. So from here, we need to select our prospect entity, got it here. And I already enabled it for Web API, but in general, you would need to click on Enable for Web API. You need to select fields that you want to use. In our case, it's email, message, and name, and hit Save Changes. So it will be updated in CRM, and it will create necessary site settings, which is really useful. And here, you can actually create a snippet for creating things. So as you can see, you can basic create, basic update, update single, basic delete, and delete single. In our case, we just need to basic create. So this is a code that system generated based on fields. And if I will remove fields, it will remove it from here, as you can see as well. So it will generate it on the fly. So let's copy this code. And let me open back my studio. So hopefully you don't mind that I will use the studio because it's just easier. And I really like linter in here. So this is the content snippet that you see previously in my system, just loaded locally to my machine, so I can work with it with Visual Studio Code. So let's create the function create prospect that will be called on our button, which doesn't have any arguments. Okay, so let's pass the content snippet that we have. Let's format the text to make it much more readable. And let's rename this variable to prospect to create, which make it much more readable. Okay, and let's replace it to let because I'm much more formal. Don't like very bars. Okay, so let's actually inspect the snippets that we receive. So this is how we call our web API. So web API dot save Ajax. And then we need to provide an object which will have the properties or Ajax options for the call. So we need to provide the type, and as I told you previously, there are 4 types. So post is using for create, which is good because we want to create it in our case. Then the URL to call. So we can provide partial URL starting with API, and then collection name. So as you can see, DVC prospect, not DVC prospect. Then we need to provide content type. And this is also really important because this basically says what content we are sending to the API. Right now, the only content you can provide is application JSON. So there's nothing else supported, but in the future, it might be. Then we need to provide the data for the payload. So for this, we are just stringifying this object, which will have all the fields that we need. And then you need to provide success function. One thing that is missing here is an error function, which we will add later, but let's start with this for the beginning. And this success function will just print the entity of newly created. Okay, so we have some values, we have our function. Let's just read from our inputs and we are ready to go. So let's create, email, which will basically get the data from our email field. And the same thing for name and message. So nothing fancy for now. And just to check, name, email, message, great. And we'll put this value here. Let's save and let's use my portal helper to update this back to portal. So upload current portal we'll use, which basically what it will do, it will send this data back to our portal through CLI. So the data will be updated. Okay, let's go back to the system. And if we go back to content snippets, we can see that the data was indeed updated. So yeah, as you can see, our create prospect was added. Everything is here. So let's go back to the portal and let's see what will happen when we will provide the data. So let's open console to see the results. And so let's provide the name, John Smith, and email test@test.com. Message, obviously, hello world, and hit submit. I think I got a mistake in my code, just a second. So why is it not defined? It is here. Oh yeah, obviously, sync configuration. Yeah, sometime happen, you need to clear cache. Let's see if it was actually added. So we have create prospect here and we have create prospect here. Okay, beautiful. So don't forget to clear the cache. Okay, let's try again. John Smith test@test.com and hello world. Okay, web API is not defined. What I'm missing? Yep, I'm missing one crucial thing. So I actually not included web API itself. So usually what I'm doing is I created an web template that contains the code. And usually to not overload on the pages, I either add it to the page where I need to use it, or we can add it to the header to make it present on every page. It depends on you, basically. So in this example, I will just add it here. So we need to include, and let me find the proper name. Okay. And let's upload again. Okay. Now should be good. Let's sync by configuration. Cache. Okay. Third time's a charm, right? Okay, this is funny. I really like when everything goes as planned, right? Interesting. That include. So it is included. Oh gosh. Here we go. Okay, so it wasn't clear properly. So now as you can see, we have it entity ID. So it was created, and we go and check that it was indeed created. So for example, I have a course management app, which we can see that it was indeed created in prospects. Hello world. Now, one thing that you might notice is there's no visual feedback. So there was nothing that we actually sending the data, and there was nothing if something went wrong. So this is really important when you're using WebAPI, and this thing that I want really to emphasize. You right now are responsible for visual feedback, and you are responsible for handling errors. This means that you always need to provide something for the user when you're using it. Simple example can be if, for example, when we hit on a submit, it will be set submitting, and if it was successful, it will be transformed to success or something like that. So let's do it right now. So let's update our code. So I will use my final version to speed up the process because it's taking a bit longer. So when we hit create prospect, it will change the button name to sending. And then when we'll hit success, what it will do, we can change the name of the button to success and, for example, change its class. So it will show success. Great thing. But we also need to think about the errors. So let's the error handler. And this is one of the limitations for now for the tool, for the Oleksandr Toolbox plugin, that it did not add the error statement. Okay, so error function, it looks similar. So you just need to type error function, XHR status, and error. You can also omit the status and error and just type XHR because the response of the error will be in this object. So to get it, we can just use xhr.response text. And what this will do is if something went wrong, the button will be errored and the error will occur in the console. Now, in reality, in production projects, I would propose you to let users download the data in some form or another because if the error will be in the console, it's not very helpful and not very useful to you. If we are going even further, there is tools that are used in the websites to monitor logging and send errors automatically to you, but we will not cover this, and it's topics for another time. So for now, with these updates, let's update. Let's upload the latest version and see how it transforms the user experience. Because again, with WebAPI, you are responsible for the user experience. So same configuration. Reload is clearing cache. Okay, just validate that it's properly reloaded. Nope, it did not clear the cache. Okay, let's hit some configuration again. Let's validate. Okay, still not clearing cache. Okay, let's log in. Clear cache through an admin, right? Just in case if it would clear it. Yes, okay, that's ridiculous. Okay, so now we have updated button. So let's click on it and see how it changed. So let's say we have Alex Jones. And we have email test2@test.com message, hello, new world. When we hit submit, it says sending while the process is performing, and success when it finished, which is much greater indicator, and also user knows that what happened, and for you it's much better experience. Overall, again, I'm highlighting you are responsible for the user experience, so be careful with what you're doing and how you're handling, especially errors. Okay, now let's move through from contact us to courses and see what we can do with bulk operations. So as you can see right now, I don't have any permissions. So let's go again here and create permissions for our courses and sessions because we will need them. So let's say I want to see courses globally. So we want to read and append them because we don't want users to change them. Course, here course, but we want to see them and being able to append. And let's say it's for authenticators users only and for administrators. And access type is global. Hit save. Okay, so now we should be able to read append our courses. So again, sync configuration. Okay, enable ticket detection. Now, if you're using make.preview PowerApps.com with Portal Studio, these things might happen frequently. So just be aware that some things like that with the preview functionality might be when it will lost connectivity. So you would need to reload the page and try again. But at least we have better user experience, right? Okay, so let's refresh the page. Okay, so great. Now we can see courses. We have programs like time travel, and we have Pokemonology. So funny stuff. Everybody would like to attend it, right? So let's say we want our students to select courses they want to attend. And let's say we want them to hit the attend button, or being able to select multiple courses and hit the attend button on the top to attend them all. Well, it would be really useful. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, let's explore the page itself. So this is, if we go back to the Portal Studio and explain all courses, this is just a standard page with a full template with entity list edit. So nothing fancy, nothing special. Now, usually when I'm working with entity list and displaying tables, I have two approaches. So first, if I want to have more control how it's visualized or want to add additional components, I am actually rewriting how the entity list is rendered. I'm rendering it from scratch, which gives much more flexibility. And you can find good example on how to do it in docs. Other approach that I'm usually taking is not using entity list at all and creating my own web template, small web APIs that I can query, and then using external tables like data table to present data. But I understand that in real life situations, you might not be able to render the page and would like to hop in to just changing the existing entity list. And you can do it with JavaScript. And I will show you how to do it in really easy form. So let's go back and see our list for this page for courses. So we have active courses, and in the options section, we have custom JavaScript. So I already preloaded some example with simple function. So first of all, I'm querying the user ID and storing it into a variable, which can be used later. And then I'm getting through jQuery entity list .entity grid class, which is basically our table, and added a listener to loaded event, which will be fired when the entity list will finish rendering. And then we can hop and get all table rows, and then we can do something with them. So this is pretty common, and you could find example of this usage in the documents. But basically what we will do, we will modify every row after it loaded and add our functionality. So again, I will do this in my Visual Studio Code. So hopefully you're fine with that. Now let's go back here, and this we can find our code. Again, we'll upload it through CLI, but you can just do it again inside the Portal Management Studio if you wish. So we get our row. So what we want to do is we want to add for each row, we want to add two things. So we want to add a checkbox in the beginning of the row, which will allow users to select a specific row. And then we want to add a button at the end of each row, which will just show attend. And if the user clicks, it should, if it's a first row, upload selected, or if it's any other row, just to add the current row. Okay, so first of all, what you need to do to know is, okay, we need ID, right? We need ID of the course to be able to perform update operation, to create a course session, which what we actually going to do, we will create a course session that will have a reference to the course and to the current logged in user. So to do so, we need to know ID of this row, and it's actually quite easy to do. So if we explore our entity list, we can see that each table row had a specific data ID thing, and it's basically just the ID of the record inside the Dataverse. So we can actually quite easy query it. So to do so, we have the row. So this is just a table row element. So we want to get the course ID, right? So it will be course ID, and it will be current row. And then we will use data and ID. So what it's going to do, it will return the data ID element of the current row. So now we get our course ID. Now let's create a button. So we need to create a button, and it will be just a button. So we'll use just a regular document, create element, button. That's why I really use to work with Visual Studio Code, because of the automatic addition of everything that we want. Okay, so, and let's beautify our button. So let's add class, and let's say it will be our primary button, and we want text to say attend. Now we cannot just add a button to a row. We need to create a new table data cell and add that one to a row. So we will create our TD wrapper. So I will say it's button wrapper. So I'm using the convention like button and then what's used for. So button wrapper, which means a wrapper for this button. And document create element TD. And then we can just append our button inside this TD, and then we can append wrapper row. Now you may notice that I'm using here append child to append to button, but append to append to row. Well, this is because this is not a table row element. This is the jQuery wrapper around the table row, and it uses jQuery functions like append, data, etc. So what you get after finishing this is we will have a button at the end of each row. Now let's create a checkbox. As you can see, we are not adding the functionality itself right now. It's not. It will not fire anything. Let's just add the visual part. So let's create a checkbox. And for this one, I will just use pre-built code because it's faster and I'm already taking a lot of time. So I'm creating the input element with the type of checkbox, which is a checkbox. And then we are setting the attribute data course ID on the checkbox, which will be the course ID that we fetched earlier. So that will allow us to know immediately after we check what's the ID of the current checkbox and the current row specifically. Again, let's create a wrapper around checkbox, which is again TD element. And we will open child, we will add the name, class name, which we'll use later. Now, the checkbox should be added at the beginning of the row. So just append will not help us. Well, in this one, we can use some query selectors to get the first TD of the row. So current row find TD equals 0 will return us the first row of the first table data element of the row. And we can use the before command to add our checkbox wrapper before this first element, meaning that our checkbox will become the first one. Now, there is only one problem with the code that I write just now. The first row in the table, it's headers. So it has not TD, but TH element. What can we do without it? Well, the first row will not have the course ID element. So we can distinguish between them quite easily. We can distinguish between them just by checking if our course ID is undefined or not. So what we need to do is in the button wrapper, we need to check course ID. If it exists, it's TD. But if it doesn't exist, it's TH. And similar thing with the checkbox wrapper. So I will just copy it. Also, for searching, again, TD will not work. So we need to use different one. So we can again query by course ID, and if it has, it will be TD. If not, it will be TH. Now, we can always split this into parts. So you can separate logic for buttons for the rows and buttons for the header in separate branches, and that's what actually I did in my examples that will be shared with you. But this is also fully a supported approach, and I like it more because it actually reduces the number of overhead code. Okay, so far so good. Now let's upload this code back to the system and see how it will look like. Okay, it updated. So let's go here. Let's sync configuration. Let's go back. Let's refresh the page. Okay, great. As you can see, we added our attend button and checkboxes. So far, so good. Now, one thing you need to know, which is really important. If I'm clicking right now on attend, the page will reload. But we didn't add any functionality, right? Well, this is because we are adding the data inside the entity list, and there are already some functions added by the system, by the web page itself, to every element. So when we're adding the button, it will add those things to that button. So to remove this, we can use a simple function from jQuery, and it's pretty straightforward. So when we have our button, we can use off. What off do, it's basically, it removes all event listeners assigned to this button. And because it's our custom button and that's what we want, this is ideal situation. So after we cleaned this button up, let's add the actual functionality, what we want to do. So we want for a button click to add make things. So if it will be course ID. So if this is the button for our regular row, what we're gonna do is we will add event listener. On the click event, we will pass the event to this function. We will prevent its execution if somehow the page itself added some listener to this button after we disabled them, just in case. And then we can call attend course with this course. And attend course we will write right now, and it will be the function to create new course session. And if it will be the button in the header, is a button in the header. Again, the same thing almost, but we will add attend selected courses function, which we will create right now. You might ask, okay, why we are removing event listeners and then preventing the default execution? Well, obviously just in case. If, however, you will prevent default here without removing every other listeners, it will still not work properly. So it still will try to reload the page. So don't forget to remove event listeners if you're adding the buttons to the entity list via JavaScript. If, however, you are rendering your own entity list manually through Liquid, you don't need to do that because it will not add any additional overhead. Okay, so we have added the functionality to our button, right? Now let's see what we can do with creating our own attend course function. Now again, I'm a bit running out of time, sorry. I spent so much time to things that I didn't do, so I will use my demo to add the necessary functionality. Okay, so this will be our attend course button. Now, we want to make it beautiful, right? We want to make it that user, when they click on the button, they cannot do anything like that, anything else on the page, and they will see beautiful loading screen. This is especially useful when you are waiting for execution of the multiple calls, especially which we'll do in a second when we select multiple rows. So for this one, we will be using loader, and I'm using a library called loading overlay, which is really useful. And basically what this library does is allow you to show full screen of array. I also preloaded SVG. I downloaded from the loading.io website, which allows you to create loaders pretty quickly, and the links will be shared later with you. And we will see how it looks like in a second. So what basically I'm doing, I'm creating new image element, which I'm putting into div element as a wrapper. And then I'm passing this wrapper with image to loading overlay, basically what to show when you're passing it. There's also an option to pass the image directly, but it not always properly works. So this custom approach is much better. Then what I want to do, I want to simulate 3-second delay, because usually WebAPI can be fast and we don't want to, in this special example with a simple logic to do this. So I'm simulating 2-second delay with the timeout for 2 seconds. And then what we'll call is again our saveIX function. Now let's go back to Portal API for a second and go to course sessions. Now that's what we want to create, the course session. Now one thing that I would need to highlight to you, again, I already enabled the API, so it will work just fine. And in here, in example for basic create, what it will assume is that you want to also create subsequent records. So you want to create hero course and hero student fields on the course session records. Now, obviously, it's not in our case. We don't want to create subsequent records. We just want to update. So if you don't know how to write, you can just click on basic update. And basically, this is what we need to do. We need to use field name, then a data bind, and then provide the name of the entity list with the ID. Now, again, I want to highlight to you some inaccuracies that I noticed is that in here, as an example provided by Microsoft, it also says to provide the portal URL /API, so full URL. But you don't need to do this. You can actually just provide the name of the entity list with the ID, and it will work just fine. You don't need to write the full URL of the portal and its /API. It's smart enough to understand that, and you can embed this part, which will save you a lot of the overhead. So what we are doing here is we are passing the lookup, and we know the course ID, so we'll be passing the proper course ID, and then in the contact we are passing the ID of the current user. And then again, we will create it via post, via course session. We want to, if success, we want to hide overlay. And then we want to show some success dialog. And then we want to, if the error occurs, we want to show some error dialog. Oh my gosh, I am really bad with timing. Hope you're not tired, anyone, because we are not straight yet to finish. Okay, so now we have a function for one button. So let's add our success dialog and error dialog to the mix, because why not? Okay, so for the success and alert dialog, I'm using another library called Sweet Alerts. Sweet Alerts allow you to show beautiful alert dialogs really easy with different statuses like success or error and do different actions. And it will look beautiful and will fit a lot of things. And as you can see in success dialog, I'm just showing this success dialog for 3 seconds. And then we want to shut it down. So we don't want to say any buttons. We just want to success. Let's not touch error dialog for now. Let's keep it simple. And then we will turn later and I will show you how you can easily create an error dialog with ability to download the actual error for your user. Just a second to keep intrigue. Now, the final piece comes when, okay, let's upload it and let's see how it looks like. Do not talk a lot and just let you see how it looks like. Okay, while it's uploading, what we need to do as well is we need to create one more table permission for creating courses and for reading contacts because we will appending them. So in this example, for speed, I will just grant global course sessions. and we want to read, and we want to create, and we want to append design and so anonymous authenticated user. Okay. And we want to, because we will append the contact, what we also need to do is we need to permission to append contacts. But let's, for this example, let's read append contacts. Now, usually you will not do it. You will select something simpler, and actually, let's reduce the course session to just our current student because we don't want the students to see the data from the other sessions, right? So let's change it to contact access, and let's select the proper relationship. Student contact, great. So this will allow us only to see our course session. Okay, we added this, we added the code. One last piece of the puzzle that we didn't edit yet is the reference to the libraries that I was mentioning earlier and WebAPI. So what we're going to do is we will add them to the page copy of this page, which I already did. So as you can see, I'm including WebAPI. I'm also including a Suite Alert and the loading overlay. Nice. Okay, we have our things. Let's refresh the page. I'm really sorry, everyone, that it's taking longer than 1 hour. Hope you didn't have any urgent plans, but I'm almost done. Okay, so let's say we want to attend the first course, Alola Forms for Pokemology. Nice. Let's click on attend. And this is the SVGs that I loaded. This is the overlay to code beautiful and success. Everything is done. So let's see in my sessions list, was the session actually created? Oh, I got a lot of those. I need to delete demo information so we can, but we can actually, we can sort for creation date. Okay, let me remove this and let's try again. Okay. Hooray. So as you can see, it was created properly. Now let's handle a situation when we want multiple scenarios. So let's go back to code and let's add the function for multiple courses. And it will be a big one. Okay, so again, in the beginning, we are adding the loader. We are showing the loader. Now it comes the crucial part. So usually in the real-time projects, you don't want your users to, you want your user to know when the action is finished. And if you will just run and call WebAPI for the course session and the array, you won't exactly know when it's finished. So if you just start the loading overlay before the array and finish it after the array, it wouldn't be proper, right? And you also cannot set to hide overlay in your WebAPI call itself because it won't be correct. So what should you do? Like, how do you know when all of your asynchronous calls are finished? Well, luckily for us, as I showed you previous, WebAPI returned promise. And web browsers know how to work with multiple promises. For it, we have a object called promise. And it has a lot of different properties like all done, etc. But what we are waiting for and really want is all settled. This property allows you to pass an array of asynchronous calls, read promises, and wait until they all will finish. So huge advantage of this versus all done is that it will wait for finishing everything, even if some of the calls will fail, which will not work with other instances. So you will definitely know that everything is finished, and also can crawl through the results to know was it finished properly or if there was an error. So let's backtrack a bit. Now we need to pass here array of asynchronous calls, of promises, right? So how can we do this? Well, we can just create a simple array. Then what I'm doing is I'm getting all the checkboxes, and I want to see if this checkbox was checked or not. And if this checkbox was checked, I want to get ID of this specific course through this property data course ID. Now you might notice that in this example of code, I'm using get attribute, where previously I was using data property. Again, this is because this checkbox is the checkbox input element of the page, and in previous example, it was a wrapper by jQuery, so different functions. Now when we have the course, what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing inside the array the promise that will be returned by this call. So what will happen is basically this function will return promise, as I showed in the beginning, and this promise will be added to the array. So we will add all these promises to the array and then pass it to the allSettled function of the promise object, and then wait through then until it will be finished. And only then we are hiding our overlay. Then what I would like to do is, okay, now we will have an array of errors, and I don't want to show the user like 10 or 20 errors. So for me, it's easier to get the errors and just show them as one thing. So I will get all the errors. And how I can get this? Well, we have this results object, which will have the status of what went wrong. So it can have the status rejected if it failed, or succeeded if everything works. So I'm checking if this call was rejected, and then adding it the result.reason.response text, which is actual error, to the error log. And then okay, we don't have any errors, we want to show success dialog. We have some errors, we want to show error dialog. I would say simple enough. One more thing is that our okay, so let's save it and let's update it and see how it will work. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's sync configuration. Let's clear the cache. And let's just check if it added code or not. Oh yeah, we can check, it will be longer, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's check multiple. So we just have first one, but let's check multiple. So let's say check all others. Now we can add the functionality to toggle all or through the first checkbox, but let's not focus on that. You will be able to find it in the examples that we'll share with you. So let's click on our Attend button. And now, voila, it finished for all of them. How I know? Well, if we go to sessions, we can see all the sessions. Now let's go to this cherry on top. Let's say, and it's error handling. As I showed you previously, error handling is really important. So let's say we removed permissions to create sessions. Let's activate it. Just a second. It sometimes happens with preview. Okay, so it's inactive. Let's go back to Oh. And let's check a couple of those and let's click attend. Okay, so as you can see, we have our error dialog that says, okay, you can just write to support yada yada, and you can actually download the error logs. And when I click on download error logs, as you can see, I have a JSON file, which we can open. Let's just open it in Visual Studio Code. And in here, you can see that it's actual string of code that what happened. So because I have inner error enabled, which I taught in the beginning of this course, I can see not just the error, but the actual message. That you don't have permissions to create records for hero course session table, which we can use then to do whatever we need to. And let's see how I did this good thing, and you will actually have this code, so you can do it exactly the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm parsing the error that I got from our external web API, and I'm stringifying it. I'm creating a new file, blob with text plain extension. I'm then checking if the browser does have URL. So WebKit URL is for Mac devices. Then I'm providing the error name. And then I'm generating a link, which I'm using the create object URL function, which will basically transform this file to your regular data URL, which usually starts as data to dots type of data, comma, base64 string representation of this data. And because this is the natural behavior of the link to download it, and this is the data URL, browser will download it as a file with the name that we specified in the download. So that's how easy you can create the error dialog so the user can get the actual error and share with you. But okay, sorry for taking so long time. I hope you find this useful. And yeah, let's jump to questions if you have any. I'm sorry that it was taking so long.
I don't see any questions on the chat window. I see people.
I've got one question.
Oh,
I've got
go
one
for it.
question. Can you come back again, please? That was incredible.
Yeah,
I will.
come back next week.
That was amazing.
Maybe we should extend this for 3 weeks. I don't know, but this is amazing. This is good stuff. Yeah, I don't know if we should make it available on YouTube or if we should make it like a paid subscription just for this one session. No, I'm joking. We'll make it available publicly, but it's very good. So let's see. I think we have some hands up. Nor, Sam, if you want to go first and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexander. I don't know whether you have seen in the comment section. I have said that I have never seen this level of explanation of each and every line of code. So that was pretty amazing, man. And I mean, I don't know how to say thank you. So as as someone said that we need you back, and I would suggest Victor that if we can extend this session even for 3 weeks, and if Alexander have time for us, that would be pretty amazing. And I just have two questions. The first one is, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, continue.
Oh, thank you. So the first question is there some timeout limitation for this web API? Like we have something for the Power Automate workflow or the customized .NET workflow where the workflow cannot exceed, I don't know whether 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. So this implementation where we are selecting like for each or selection of the items from the grid. So is there some timeout limitation for the web API?
Yes, so the timeout limitation is completely the same as with Dataverse API or with Flow, so it's 2 minutes. So, but because we are not executing this, so we are executing this request one after another. So in my example, as I showed you, we are just waiting for all of them execute, but they are executing separately. So for each of them, it shouldn't exceed 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, I guess right now we cannot call any Power Automate workflow or any Dataverse workflow from this web API. We cannot, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot. The functionality to call at least custom function and custom action is planned for the future. I'm not sure about flows and workflows, but
Okay.
hopefully it will be soon. You still can call the flow if it's a flow with when HTTP request received one. That one you can call, and I think Nick Dahlman in his blog write about that. So you should definitely check it out.
Okay. All right. And as you earlier said, please share this
Yeah.
JS file with us. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Code examples will be shared.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, next here in the queue is Manjunath. If you want to unmute and pose your question, would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Victor, and thanks, Alex, for a wonderful session. And I don't have any words like by seeing the explanation, the real-time implementation. My question for this web API is on like you already explained in the first slide, like when we are setting the GDPR rules, like uh, any authentication would automatically taken care for the web API part, but still we're supposed to pass a CSFR token, right? So if you pass CSFR token, so how that handles, like do we need to call with default shell commands to know whether we are authenticate with the right contact person, or if we enable the web API functionality with anonymous access? So how are you going to track whether we are I'm currently getting a like null kind of information if you are going with anonymous? So is there any way that I can track with rather than null any predefined account kind of thing?
No, unfortunately, this is if you are calling it from anonymous, obviously there is no indication who actually did this. So it will be shown in Office 365 Compliance Center as just done by the system, which is not actually useful. So I would say if you want to be fully compliant or want to get outed on some things that need to be accessed by anonymous users, you need to have some way of, if you need the data of authentication, you would need to come up with some sort of workarounds. Because in general idea of the web API to do something inside the portal, so I understand why there is only contact ID when you're getting with authenticated user. But that's it for now, unfortunately.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, David Rivard, if you want to.
Thank you so much, man. That's amazing session. Actually, I think you answered my question. My question was about, is it possible to call custom actions or custom API with this web API?
Not for now. They plan to add this at some point in time, but not for now. And there's no ETA or something. So
okay. Because
Yeah,
I think
just need to
I
wait.
saw some blog post on because you can have a global action. I understand you might not be able, but if you have an action that is defined on an entity or a table, you might be able to do it. But I was not able to make it work.
No, it's not working. I also saw the blogs that says that you can call custom actions, but in examples they providing just the regular entities. So yeah, it's not possible for now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I think Omar mentioned that you would be able to call a bound action, but you wouldn't be able to read the results. I haven't tried it myself, so I don't know whether it works or not. But even if it does work, I mean, what's the point, right? If you can't read anything back, it doesn't make sense. I mean, my hope is that custom actions will work, at least the bound ones, where we can get results back. And not only that, I hope that the web API, although it's a subset of the major API, that it would have most of the features, meaning data types, for God's sake, multiple option sets would be a big one in portals, multi-option sets, sorry, multiple choices, I should say, or choices only.
Choices.
and image, the image data type. It'll be good to have some sort of parity in portals. I think it will eventually come, but we'll just wait for those goodies to show up.
Thanks.
I don't think we have any more hands. Oleksandr, thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate your time. We'll try to make some rearrangements. Maybe we can still have you back for a third week and we can talk some more. On the schedule, we have yourself next week, and then Arpet for 2 weeks on ALM portals, and then I would be closing with PCF. We might have a Microsoft professional do the PCF session, the very last one. So I think we can make some arrangements and bring you back for a third week. I mean, I think people are tired of hearing from me, so it'd be better to hear from you guys. So it's a good thing. Again, thanks for your time today. Before we go, I wanna show a couple of things here. Let's see if I can get my windows to pop up. Um, we have this event coming up on it's gonna be Friday, late Friday or early Saturday for me, but it's I think it's 8 a.m. UTC for everybody else. It's the Power Platform Development Bootcamp. It's the last leg of the bootcamp, where we're going to be talking a lot about ALM or backend Dataverse technologies. If you want to check out the schedule, we have not virtual entities, maybe virtual tables. Oh, maybe the rebirth of virtual entities. But we have folks, Tammy and Raja, Ivan Fico, my friend Alain de Castro from France, and then a lot of other guys, Stefano, I think he's in Italy, and Julian Sharp. So these guys will be talking about Dataverse backend stuff. It's Saturday, and then as part of the event, I think it's around 3 p.m. UTC, 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. my time. We're gonna be hosting a Q&A with it's gonna be myself, Danish, Naglikar, April Duma, Scott Duro, whom else? Victor, Daryl Labar, and I may be missing. Oh, and Phil Topness. So we're gonna be talking a lot Fusion development teams. The whole buzz around Microsoft's push for pro devs to learn a bit more than Dynamics 365 development, a little bit more on Azure services and other things. So we'll be taking questions for that particular topic. So if you have questions, I'm gonna post this link on the chat window. You can submit your questions in advance. Those who do will participate on the prize takeaways at the end of the event. But yeah, I strongly encourage you to do so. I mean, people ask me a lot of questions on what's going to happen with my career. What's going to happen when Microsoft is done with this transition. From a lot of what I do to citizen development techniques, and then what I don't do. What is it that I need to learn? So if you can submit your questions. If you would share about the events, it would be great if you do, and if you'd help us share the info. So the form link is on the chat window, and you can submit your questions. The link to the event, I'm about to post it as well. And I think that's all I have for today. Well, thanks, Oleksandr. Go get some sleep. I think it's late where you are, and we'll let you go. Thank you so much again. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Thank you. See you next
bye-bye.
week.
Everyone,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Victor.